Hey Boo Buddies, Anya here and welcome back. Today's video is the second installment of my annual HallowZine project. In part 1 we made the thumbnail outline layout, and now using that reference we are going to make the illustrations today. I am using watercolor for my illustrations this year, so I'm just going to go ahead and tape down some watercolor paper that I have already transferred a sketch of what was in the thumbnail to the big illustration, and I'm gonna set up my watercolors and let's get started. I'm starting this illustration with a peachy colored pencil to start off, to give the character in this painting some skin tone, and I am pretty lousy about mixing skin tones and doing people with watercolor, but I found that using this peachy colored pencil underneath an olivey yellow color, I get a nice healthy depth looking skin tone that isn't quite one ethnicity or another clearly, but it's a lighter ethnicity, but I don't trust myself to try and do darker things without offending. So I'm just going to keep it to some skin tone that I know, which is a nice olive undertone, but using the peach underneath the paint gives it a nice round, healthy, alive look. At least that's what I am doing and what I have found. I am not the most skilled at painting people or living things. But I'm starting with the lightest colors and mostly just going back and forth between keeping the pencil wet and then adding in my layers of color with the paint on top until I get a nice skin tone look, but also a nice shaded look. So it's mostly just going to look like blobs as we start out. We're going lighter to darker tones here, and actually I'm just moving from the blocks of where the colors go in this illustration. So right now I'm doing all the skin. The only skin showing in this illustration is of course the witch's forehead and then their arm, which is holding a magic wand. So next I'm going to fill in with the wand to kind of make the hand not look quite so crab claw-like and more like a hand, and see where I need to add any shading or details after the fact. So I'm mixing a bronze copper with some brown to get this woody color that is going on. The metallic isn't gonna show up a whole lot on camera or even in the final HallowZine project, but what it is doing is it's warming up the brown to kind of give it more of a mahogany polished wood look. And so even though the metallic isn't gonna show up in the final product, it is helping the paint blend into a nice, more wood-like effect. So now that I've got the wand going, I am going back and doing the backs of the fingers that are wrapped around, just adding in all those details, making sure the shading is what I like. I am using the same metallic bronze watercolor, and I'm mixing it with one of my black watercolors to do the hat. And again, this is just so that I keep the warm tone all the way through the painting. It's really not going to show up or seem metallic, but it warms up the black so that it almost looks brown when the paint's going down, and it looks like the witch is wearing a brown hat. But when the paint dries, it comes out as a nice warm velvety black that really helps carry, and so everything looks like it's belongs and is made from the same palette. So that's why the metallic mixed in is actually been really a fun toy, even though the metallic isn't really showing up in this painting. So metallics, who knew how much fun they are. This next section is almost like reverse painting. So what I did was I took a gray mixed with white and a lot of water, and I put the color down to be the book pages. But you'll see it comes out very dark and very opaque, and we don't want that for book pages because we want more just like we want white or even yellowish tone of book pages to make this spell book work, but it comes out really dark. So what I end up doing is I take my clean brush with the water to help fix mistakes, and I load it up with a ton of water, and I go back and I basically am painting with water and taking the paint off the paper, so it's like reverse painting right now. And eventually, it takes a bit of time, but eventually I get the nice bit of shading that we want, so it looks more like paper and less like gray blobs. You'll notice that I really am only using 2 brushes for this whole painting. One, they're both round. One is 1 inch and one is, I think it's a 3/4 inch. Don't quote me on those sizes. They're small, round. And one I've been using for applying color, and one I've been using for applying water and picking color up to fix mistakes. And that's really what I did for the whole painting. So it's the same 2 brushes, just cleaning them up between colors and rinsing them thoroughly. So the final thing we need to add for this illustration is the book cover, and I went with a similar color scheme as the cover I made for the HallowZine project. So it's 2 greens mixed together. I think that are emerald or hooker green and sap green, so not emerald, but which is not exactly what I used for the whole cover that's going to go on the front of this project. For that I did sap green and some more yellow. I don't remember which yellow, but to give it more of that acidy spellbook look. But this I wanted to kind of do a call back to the whole cover that we're in without it being so matchy-matchy, because it's not the exact same thing but similar. So I am using my brushes to add different levels of pigment and water to give texture and shading and really define the planes of the book of this is the front, this is the back, this is the spine. And it took a couple of letting everything dry and then re-wetting and moving some paint around to get those crisp lines to define the planes, but as well as to blend in the shading to kind of give the idea that it's not just squares of even color, but this is something that is made of leather, and it's a book, and it's got some perspective going on. For all of the illustrations in this HallowZine, I definitely tried to keep all of the illustrations as simple as this one, where they're very interesting to look at, but they're really just the idea of story and idea of colors making shapes that become what we interpret them in. But there's not a lot of detail. And there's not a lot of stress that way. So I am gonna finish up with just going back over on the dry painting and cleaning up some details, reblending some colors for some shading effect, and making sure that the whole thing works together. And now comes the oh so satisfying peeling of the tape. Even though there isn't a strong border in this painting, I still think this is so satisfying. So in part 3, I will show you how I put all the illustrations together and create the HallowZine itself. All right, thank you for watching, Boo Buddies, and I hope this inspired you in your Halloween projects. I will see you in the next one.